Hi, how you doing? Uh, I believe that many animation and cartoon fans are well aware that on April 16th, 2020, Gene Deitch, legendary Tom and Jerry and Popeye director, passed away. What some animation fans clearly do not know is that Gene Deitch did not create Tom and Jerry or Popeye. So instead of insinuating that Gene Deitch created these lovable characters, I'm going to tell you his real accomplishments, starting with
Terrytoons presents The Real Great Adventures of Me, Tom Terrific.
after completing his apprenticeship at popular animation studio UPA. Gene Deitch went to Terrytoons and worked as a creative head there for years. He created characters such as Tom Terrific, Clint Clobber, and Sidney the Elephant. You can actually tell that the UPA style had a genuine influence on him. Uh, you can see a lot of similarities between films that were produced at the UPA studio and his later projects. After completing his work at Terrytoons, Deitch went on to work with Rembrandt Films to create his Academy Award-winning film, Monroe. Monroe is a short animated film centering around, well, Monroe, who was drafted into the United States Army at 4 years old.
What me, mister?
There's no denying that UPA's style is felt throughout this cartoon, and considering that it was a very popular studio at the time and won several Academy Awards on its own, there's no wonder why Gene nabbed the Oscar that year. I'm assuming many of you watched Tom and Jerry when you were kids, and probably a lot of you watch it today. And when you think of Tom and Jerry, this is what you think of. Well, here's Deitch's version. Once again, you can see the UPA influence, but this time around, it's not really lending well to the original Tom and Jerry style. And if you're a little confused about the difference between these cartoons or have never seen the Deitch version before, give me a minute, I'm gonna explain. Tom and Jerry was created by William Hanna and Joseph Barbera in the early 40s. And they continued to work on Tom and Jerry's for about 20 years, but the original series would come to an end by the late 50s. With the new invention of television, a lot of theatrical animation was finally going out the door, and Tom and Jerry was no different. You see, theatrical animation was becoming too expensive for studios, and considering that a majority of the theater's audience was going to television, the death of theatrical animation was only inevitable. And by the late 60s, a majority, if not all, theatrical animation houses were defunct. After the end of Tom and Jerry's original run, MGM, Tom and Jerry's distributor, contracted Gene Deitch at Rembrandt Films to produce Tom and Jerry shorts. Gene would go on to produce 13 Tom and Jerry shorts on a much lower budget than the original series. And along with the UPA style, they really don't look like Tom and Jerry cartoons. But they can be considered very good Gene Deitch cartoons. The same sort of situation applies to Popeye, except Popeye was originally a comic strip character created by E.C. Segar in 1919, long before Gene Deitch was even in the animation industry. Popeye was brought to the big screen by Max and Dave Fleischer in the early 30s for Paramount Studios. The spinach gag was created at this studio, as well as the love triangle between Popeye, Bluto, and Olive Oyl. But once the theatrical animated shorts died, Gene Deitch was contracted once again to produce the Popeye cartoons.
Faster, Otto, faster. This is the kind of bike riding chunk.
I'm sure you can tell, but these cartoons turned out a whole lot worse than the Tom and Jerry's. A lot of the problem with these is that they were being produced for television, and they had significantly lower budgets than even the Tom and Jerry's that he produced a few years earlier. And yeah, it shows. It shows. So now you know that Gene Deitch didn't create Tom and Jerry or Popeye. I saw a lot of articles and videos sort of insinuating that he was the creator of them. So yeah, that's about it. Subscribe if you like this video. I intend to make more. And yep, see you later.
Subscribe. 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 Subscribe.